Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Coffee with CEO by CEO Club Pakistan. It is a segment for featuring the success stories and the inspiring journeys of the CEOs in Pakistan. And this is a journey we almost featured 1,000 CEOs in our books and our magazines, in our channel at CEO Today TV. Basically, the philosophy and the purpose behind these conversations, we seek the inspiration and we seek the guidance from the CEOs just for the young people, because in Pakistan, as per research by the Dawn newspaper, 70 to 80% Pakistani people think they are directionless. And secondly, the biggest challenge nowadays after the COVID hit, and that is the economical depression and recession, and that's people are very depressed, and how to come out of the depression. So today we have a very the successful CEO, Mr. Syed Mohsin. Syed Mohsin has a 23 years plus experience in working with the Pakistan microfinance industry. Now he's the CEO of Pakistan Microfinance Network, and he's really a gem because the microfinance industry in Pakistan is flourishing last 2 decades. And number one reason, because in Pakistan still 70% plus people are unbanked. Just like in the Bangladesh, the people are in the more access to finance and access to quality education. Now we just have a conversation and thoughts over these microfinance challenges and issues in Pakistan. So please welcome Mr. Syed Mohsin. Syed sir, thank you very much. Walaikum assalam. आप मोहसिन हमें इनलाइटन कीजिए, गाइड कीजिए कि क्या जर्नी आपकी थी, क्या चैलेंजेस आपने फेस किए पिछले 23 सालों में इस इंडस्ट्री के अंदर, और क्या अचीवमेंट्स आप यू आर रियली प्राउड ऑफ.
So thank you very much, Ji. I am really humbled to give this interview to the CEO Club magazine. मेरे ख्याल से जो मैं आपसे शेयर करना चाहूँगा, the journey of the microfinance network, and along with the success of the microfinance industry. So Pakistan's microfinance network is amongst very few networks, I would say, country level networks globally in the microfinance space, and also as an association space who have grown along with the industry. So the dynamics of the microfinance industry and the way microfinance network has worked or has provided the necessary guidance or the necessary support instruments have gone together. Now I'll start with, like, for example, the formal microfinance sector in Pakistan started around 2000 with the promulgation of the Microfinance Institutions Ordinance in 2001, and prior to that the creation of the Khushali Bank through the Khushali Bank Ordinance, and the setting up of the Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund. And PMN played its role in terms of advocacy and providing some input from the industry to both the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank. And as the industry progressed, we were part of the first national microfinance strategy, which was approved by the Prime Minister of Pakistan in 2006 and presented by the then Governor of the Central Bank. And so PMN, along with a lot of other stakeholders, including the Central Bank team, was involved in the development of that national strategy. And that actually provided the necessary, I would say, growth impetus for microfinance. At that time, we are talking about Pakistan population was maybe 170, 180 million. Our total microfinance outreach in terms of number of active borrowers was less than 500,000. And so we developed a strategy for reaching 10 million active borrowers in the next 5 to 6 years. Though we have still not reached 10 million active borrowers, we are close to 8.2 million active borrowers by 2022. But all the necessary instruments that could help any industry in its growth and in its viability were put in place by the central bank, and through the central bank there was a mechanism that was put in place called the Microfinance Consultative Group, and then interactions with the government, which provided impetus for the viability of this microfinance industry.
Thank you very much. बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने बड़ी माशाल्लाह इसको बैकग्राउंड दिया आपने. क्या व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस ये जो आजकल पाकिस्तान में, अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंडस्ट्री के, क्योंकि इनको स्टेट बैंक के लाइसेंस भी मिल गए, सब कुछ हो गया, राइट नो चैलेंजेस क्या है? क्या इनकी लिक्विडिटी चैलेंज है, या इनकी रिकवरी चैलेंज है, या इनकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग चैलेंज है, ये इंस्टीट्यूशंस का जो करते हैं, क्या इनकी एक्सेस रीचेबिलिटी है? Over to you, sir.
अच्छा जी, मैं इसको इस तरह से फ्रेम करूंगा जी, the biggest challenge. And so Pakistan is a country of 220 million, I guess.
अब तो बढ़ गए, अब तो 24 हो गए.
ठीक है. So you just mentioned we are talking about exclusion of around 70%. I have just informed you that we are close to only 8.2 million active borrowers. I now compare you with some of the comparable markets. Bangladesh has a population of 180 million and its total microcredit outreach is close to 39 million.
39 million?
Yeah, and we are talking about 8.2 million in Pakistan.
Too far behind.
But India, 1.5 billion population, but combined outreach of 110 million active borrowers. Now, I would agree that India has a very big population compared to Pakistan, but India started microfinance around the same time in Pakistan started, 2000-2001, and we are only at 8.2 million, so we have not reached our own estimates at PMN is that we should have, our potential market is close to 42-43 million. So we are only 1/4 of that, but India has reached 110 million. So I would say the biggest challenge is growth. We need to achieve what we are set to do, financial inclusion. So for financial inclusion to happen, we have to reach not 8 million, but maybe 20 million, 25 million. When we reach that level, I think that is where we can start saying that we have reached the maturity life cycle curve of the microfinance industry, and we can start saying that microfinance is providing some role in terms of financial inclusion, and then its effects in terms of it should help in economic growth, inclusive economic growth. It should help in the denting poverty and having a social impact on the industry. So that's my take on this. That's challenge number one. Now, in order to achieve that, so there are sub-challenges that we are talking about. And I think one of the big sub-challenge is right now climate change. I think we all know the kind of climate patterns we are seeing across the world and in Pakistan. So Europe, temperatures went up to 40 degrees centigrade. I think nobody would have thought that in Europe it could be 40s. We've seen hectares of forest land burnt out this summer in Europe. This is what we know happens in the west coast of US, but hearing about this in Europe was interesting. Drought in Europe. Similarly, the kind of rain it is happening in Balochistan and in Sindh, this is a challenge that we have to meet. But what we also know is that in the last 15 years, since 2005, we have seen a massive earthquake in 2005. We have seen floods in 2010. We have seen rainfall in 2012. We have seen glacial outburst in 2013, 2014 in up north, and we have seen droughts and COVID and locust swarms in between 2016 and 2019, and now and COVID between 2020 and 22, and now the recent rains in the south of Pakistan, so Sindh and Balochistan. So these are all challenges which leads to, because microfinance organizations, in order to achieve their objectives of financial inclusion and economic empowerment and socio-economic change at the base of the pyramid clients, for that to achieve, they have to be viable entities. Because they take private capital, they take private debt, they take deposits, public deposit, and so they have to repay all of this. They have to give some returns to their investors. So it has to be, the model has to be, that's why it's called a tripled bottom line model, that we have a financial bottom line, but that should lead to a social bottom line and an environment bottom line. So given all of that, it is important that we have to be economically viable entities. However, this kind of climate is going to hit the entities, and so they will have to move out of places where they can see that climate or disaster will have a long-term effect on their bottom lines. And in a country like Pakistan, where the infrastructure is not like any developed country, so it is extremely important that we should have a disaster risk facility for the microfinance industry. This is something that I think government of Pakistan, regulators and donors who are looking at providing support for socio-economic change in Pakistan must come in and create that disaster risk facility for the microfinance industry.
सर एक बड़ा चैलेंज आता है और एक बड़ा क्वेश्चन भी आता है जो फाइनेंसिंग के ऊपर, जब आप ये बैंक्स फॉर द पुअर्स की बेसिस जो माइक्रो फाइनेंसिंग करते हैं, एसएमई या माइक्रो जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होती हैं, छोटी जो रीढ़ की हड्डी होती है किसी भी मुल्क की इकॉनमी में, वो आता है इंटरेस्ट रेट का चैलेंज, क्योंकि इंटरेस्ट रेट बिकॉज स्टेट बैंक का 7% से अब काइबर प्लस 14+ चला गया है, उससे बहुत बड़ा आया, उनकी रिकवरी स्टॉप हो जाती है, नॉन परफॉर्मिंग्स का पोर्टफोलियो बढ़ना शुरू हो जाता है, डोनर्स भी अपसेट हो जाते हैं, अदारे भी अपसेट हो जाते हैं और लोग भी अपसेट हो जाते हैं। ये जो इंटरेस्ट रेट का जो हायर साइड में 30% प्लस जो चार्जिंग होती है, लोग डेट ट्रैप में आ जाते हैं। व्हाट डू यू से सर?
ओके जी, आई थिंक दिस इज अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। सो ये एक मिथ है जो हमें डीमिस्टिफाई करने की जरूरत है अबाउट द माइक्रो फाइनेंस सेक्टर। मैं आपको एक चीज बड़ी क्लियरली बता दूं, लाइक सो दिस इज बैंकिंग फॉर द पुअर एंड द रीजन दैट माइक्रो फाइनेंस इज बैंकिंग फॉर द पुअर बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट वायबल फॉर कमर्शियल एंटिटीज। दे जनरली व्हेनेवर you would hear that in the 80s and the 90s we would hear that ADB or World Bank or some other big agency have come in and they've come in for recapitalization of the PICIC or the Industrial Development Bank of Pakistan or the Agricultural Development Bank of Pakistan. So when these entities used to go into areas which are in the hinterlands and which is where the poor bankable clients live, they start facing higher costs and or risks, because for this clientele we don't have security available to us, so we have to build through social collateral and through relationship management, and that has its cost. So that cost with a very I would say small ticket loan size, average loan sizes we're talking about 50,000 60,000 rupees for MFIs and the MFBs. And so given that loan size and the fact that these entities are regulated entities, there is a cost to these entities, and so they have to charge rates which are covering the cost of operations, providing them room to recover losses if those happens because of any number of reasons, which could be operational and which could be because of disaster, and they have to cover the cost of funds, and then they have to provide some margins for future growth so that they are able to access private debt or public funds as microfinance banks. So that structure, and with the tiny loan and with the fact that these are unsecured loans, our cost goes up to around the rates that we are talking about, and with the profit margin which is not more than 4% that we are making on top of the cost of 28-30% on average that you're talking about. So that's our cost structure. Now I will go to so with that cost, is there the ability of our clients to repay or not? So it's a global fact. That's why microfinance is a success globally. These are the rates that have been charged in different countries, round about the same rates. Ceteris paribus, if we take the interest rates and the inflation into context in all those countries, these are the normal rates for the kind of loan sizes that we are talking about. However, what is very important is two things. Number one, we need to look at economies of scale. India started reducing cost as it grew and went from its 5, 6, 10 million active borrowers to its 110 million active borrowers. Bangladesh was able to bring down its cost similarly when they crossed a certain number. So when they achieved around 50-60% penetration rates. And I'm keeping other things constant. So Pakistan has to reach economies of scale so that we are able to start seeing the cost per unit to come down. On the other hand,
please continue.
The other important factor is technology and the use of digital platforms, and that, in my view, it is very important that has to be a shared platform. Until and unless we go for shared platforms, having our own infrastructure will be very expensive for all of us. But going technology way, going digital way, and through a shared platform is the way in terms of reducing cost. Yes.
आपका इतना खूबसूरत आपने सारा ये नरेटिव दिया कि एजाज साहब ये रीज़न है कि जिसकी वजह से 4% से ज़्यादा हम मार्जिन नहीं होता, ये एक मिथ आपने डी मिस्टिफाई किया। एक क्वेश्चन है कि पार्टिसिपेशन ऑफ वीमेन स्पेशली इंक्लूसिव जो फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन की बात की आपने, उसमें बांग्लादेश इज़ अ बिग सक्सेस स्टोरी बिकॉज मोर देन वहाँ उनकी जो गारमेंट इंडस्ट्री है टेक्सटाइल में, वहाँ पिछले 15 सालों में 2 decades में टर्न अराउंड हो गया जी उनकी इकोनॉमी, एक्सपोर्ट टचिंग $50 billion. Pakistan is behind, same culture, same we are Muslim, the same economical conditions. No, they are far behind just because the one critical factor as per the World Economic Forum research, women participation. Where Pakistan does stand is the women inclusion, especially in the microfinance industry, and where we are either we are really inclusive, making the women include in this growth. How to use?
Okay, so this is again a very good question, and this is something very close to the heart of all microfinance entities because this is part of our empowerment mission as an industry. And but there is a reality that we have to understand. In Bangladesh, I went to Bangladesh, and I'm talking about not Dhaka, but its field areas. I could see women, and I'm talking about 2003, 2004, women using bicycles, women in the village area. I'm not talking about the urban areas. Urban areas, so it is very clearly prevalent that they use Vespas, they use motorcycles. So women mobility in Bangladesh was very obvious to me. I could see that in across the different countries where I have seen microfinance, in Kenya or in Uganda or in Bolivia, but they are I would say they are not Islamic countries per se. Bangladesh is an Islamic country, and so mobility was very easy. So I think if we flip the coin and so I know that as a mission, the entire industry, my members, they are majority of them have a very clear focus on increasing women access to finance. However, for that to happen, the overall culture has to also be where women mobility is as prevalent as this is in some of the other countries. However, that is not the reason that we should have the kind of outreach that we're talking about. 52% women outreach in Pakistan. This is 98% in Bangladesh. In India, it's I think around 90%. So we have to reach those numbers if we have to be inclusive and if we have to meet our empowerment agenda. But it has to lead to increased mobility into the socio-economic and cultural aspects of the country have to start changing, which is a factor of maybe education, which is a factor of more enlightened population in the country. So these are all things that will have to move together. However, I think the cherry on the top is the fact that mobility context is to a very large extent covered with the kind of outreach that mobile network operators are providing through their agents and through the mobile apps that are making it easier for the transactions to happen, for the trade to happen without mobility. Though person-to-person interaction is still very important, but to a certain extent that is providing ease of doing business or for women clients.
आपने बड़े प्यारा बताया. मैं आपको छोटी सी एक फैक्ट शेयर करूंगा मौसम. यू विल बी सरप्राइज्ड टू नो इप्सॉस एक फ्रेंच एक रिसर्च कंपनी है. उन्होंने एक स्टडी किया कि पाकिस्तान की जो टोटल जो डिजिटल एम्पावरमेंट है फीमेल्स की वो कितनी है. एंड सरप्राइजिंग टू नो कि आप गेस कर सकते हैं कितनी होगी डिजिटल एम्पावरमेंट की. कितनी
एम्पावरमेंट मेरे ख्याल से अबव 50% होगी
सर. 11%. दैट वाज शॉकिंग. यस, मैं आपको इप्सोस की रिसर्च शेयर करता हूँ. तो स्टिल हम इतना पीछे हैं. 11% खवातीन के पास इंटरनेट है, बाकी 89 के पास इंटरनेट अवेलेबल नहीं है. आगे चलते हैं सर. मैं आगे लेके चलता हूँ आपको. अब हम दूसरे पार्ट पे आ जाते हैं, शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस. एक सीईओ के लिए, एक सीईओ इज अ लीडर. एक सीईओ कि क्या एक लीडरशिप एबिलिटीज हैं. हु इज लीडर को कैसे डिफाइन करेंगे सीईओ एज अ लीडर, और लीडर की 3 कोर कंपिटेंस क्या होनी चाहिए प्लीज.
एक तो मेरे ख्याल से सीईओ को बड़ी क्लियरली डिसीजन मेकिंग होनी चाहिए. यानी आपके पास मल्टीपल प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही होती हैं, आपके मुख्तलिफ टीम के प्लेयर्स मुख्तलिफ इशूज लेके आ रहे होते हैं. सो यू शुड बी एबल टू एब्जॉर्ब ऑल दोज थिंग्स एंड टेक अ डिसीजन. So decision making is very critical for any leader, and especially if you are the CEO leader of a company. Number 2, you should be able to gather a team which complements each other. So I can recall that a lot of people I read, they say that one of the best US president was President Reagan. Though people say that he was, in terms of the intellect, not the most intellectual, but the most efficient. And the reason was that he's got the best cabinet with him. So I think having a team which complements its strengths and weaknesses is key to your success. And number 3 is your clients. You need to know who your clients are, what kind of service they require, and how can you provide them those services. So understanding your clients and their requirements is key to your success.
एक आपने ऑफ द कैमरा बात कर रहे थे, one of the key success factor for a CEO success as per the Harvard Business Review research, that is the EQ is more important for a CEO rather than IQ. What is your take on EQ for necessary for a CEO success?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you have raised. मेरे ख्याल से अगर आप मुझसे पूछे ना, when I interact with so many people in Pakistan, generally speaking, people could be very high in IQ, but I have seen very limited people in Pakistan having a good EQ, and so understanding when to not get angry, understanding how to absorb tough questions and then respond, because response is in your hand. The attack that comes on you is not in your hand, but the way you respond to them is in your hand. And that's how you learn it through by being an emotionally intelligent person. So I think person to person interaction, how do you deal with people, how do you see the mood of your team, whether they are happy or they are not happy or they are angry, and how do you respond to that, it's critical to your success. I would agree with you on that. And EQ, generally speaking, you ask me, technical people I have seen, they have lesser EQ levels compared to people who come from the business side or from the management side.
एक बहुत बड़ा एक फैक्ट ऑफ लाइफ है आफ्टर द कोविड एंड ड्यूरिंग दिस फाइनेंशियल मेल्टडाउन एंड रिसेशन राइट नाउ द ग्लोबल एंड पाकिस्तान स्पेशली the stress is a fact of life. The business stress, the lot of demands from your staff, your people, your regulators and your clients. How do you manage, Mr. Mohsin, you manage a coping strategy of your stress?
अच्छा, एक तो travel है. So when you travel, that is one way of releasing your stress. Number 2 is, I think I go for walks and I go for hikes. So that is another way of releasing your stress.
आप थिंकिंग करते हैं जब वॉक करते हैं, सोचते हैं.
बिल्कुल. You look at the strategies, you come up with counter plans with plan A, B, C. That is very important. And the third thing that happens to me, which is very negative, is that I start eating. And so
ये behavior disorder है ये.
Yeah. So that's not a positive sign.
नहीं, लेकिन ये होता है, लोग खाते हैं कोई चीज. आगे चलते हैं कि आपने डिसीजंस की बात की कि लीडर्स मेक द डिसीजन. Wasn't till now 23 years of your career in the microfinance industry, what are the 1-2 difficult decisions you took?
एक तो मेरा डिसीजन था, आई वॉज वेरी यंग, आई वॉज द एज ऑफ आई थिंक 30.
अभी भी आप नौजवान हैं.
थैंक यू सर. आई वॉज ऑफर्ड द जॉब ऑफ बिकमिंग अ CEO. आई थिंक that was a tough decision. So, and I took it. At that time, my father was on his deathbed, and I asked him one thing. I said, do you think I should go for it? And he said, I don't know. That is something you have to decide. But what I would suggest is that in your relationship with your juniors, act as if you expect your seniors to deal with you. So do unto others as you expect others to do unto you. So that was his advice to me. So, but that was a very tough decision for me.
Okay.
Number 2, I think the other tough decision that I have to take, so within the job is, I don't. Baki to comes that is part of running any organization. So I don't know. That my toughest was that.
ओके, वो मुश्किल फैसला था. दूसरी बात मुझे ये बताइए कि किताबें जो होती हैं, बुक्स, द लीडर्स आर द रीडर्स. यूजुअली दुनिया में 60 के करीब बुक्स ग्लोबल लीडर्स पढ़ते हैं. आपका रीडिंग हैबिट क्या है, और व्हाट 1, 2, 3 बुक्स यू रिकमेंड for the young people they must read in their career?
अच्छा मैं आपको बताऊं मैं I am not amongst the best of readers but I listen to a lot of advices that come through YouTube. So motivational speeches.
वो भी एक डिजिटल भी कंटेंट है, वो भी वही जरूरी है.
So वो उसको मैं रीड करता हूँ बहुत ज़्यादा. So उसको सुनता हूँ मैं बहुत ज़्यादा. So
कोई ऐसा राइटर या स्पीकर बता दे जिसको
सुनते. My best writer that I go through, it's a fiction but it's Jeffrey Archer. And this is, I read a lot of his books and they are generally related to financial business or financial crimes. And so I enjoy them. That's one of my key author that I look forward to whenever a new book comes in. Number two is that I listen to a group of, this is a group of two, Key and Peele. They are two very interesting US, I would not stand-up comedians or what, but they give messages as part of their webisodes. So I listen, I go through them. That's
Zabardast.
And the book that I would recommend, it is Good to Great.
Wow.
I think that is one of the key books. For the first time, I realized that you don't create an institution and then build a team, but that you need to have a team that builds the institution around it. And so that was a very interesting message that I got from this book, Good to Great. And the other is that you should always be, I would think, if you're looking at becoming at some leadership position, then read why did some of the companies failed and why did some of the countries fail. And so that will help you in creating the kind of structure you would want, where you would want people to have debates with you, institutionalization, though that slows down decision-making process, but that's for the longevity, that is critical for the success of an entity.
Sir, last में दो दिन छोटे-छोटे सवाल हैं. What is success to you?
That is a very...
What is the meaning and your definition of success?
अच्छा
क्या अल्फाज आप ढूंढेंगे?
अच्छा, I would think somewhere I was reading. So the success will be that I don't know when will I die, but so say I am around 50 right now. So say if I would hope to God that I achieve the age of 80. But if say I die at the age of 80, I should have achieved something, done something for the society that at least I am remembered for the next 80 years. That to me would be a success.
But leaving your legacy.
Yes.
That is a success.
Yes.
Leaving your legacy.
Legacy, yes.
What is happiness to you? खुशी किसे कहते हैं? Because
जब मैं अपने घर एंटर हूँ और मुझे अपना घर अच्छा लग रहा हो, in all its aspect, my family and the cleanliness and all of that, I feel very happy.
आप रिलैक्स फील करते हैं
जी बिल्कुल.
और घर के साथ घर वाली भी है.
जी बिल्कुल. श्योर.
आगे ये मुझे सिर्फ छोटा सा any your mentor you really कि मैं आई लॉट ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट फॉर द पर्सन 1 2 3, क्योंकि ज़िंदगी में हमेशा जो टर्न अराउंड आता है ना किसी बड़े शख्स की या कुछ सीईओ की, वो लाइफ में उसके मेंटोर्स की वजह से आते हैं. वो आजकल मेंटोरशिप का ज़माना है. एवरीबॉडी नीड अ मेंटोर, कोच. एनीबॉडी वुड यू लाइक टू रिकमेंड ये से कि ही इज माय मेंटोर, इंपैक्टेड माय लाइफ?
अच्छा, मैं 2-3 नाम.
2-3 नाम है डिफरेंट स्टेजेस ऑफ लाइफ.
एक तो मैं जब मैंने पीएमएन ज्वाइन किया तो I am thankful to God that my CEO was a Gora.
Okay.
So, and he had achieved the stage of actualization.
Wow.
So, when your leader is actualized, then he is not fearful of you. So, he allowed me to unleash my capabilities. Steve Rasmussen. He is now with CGAP and is back in Pakistan. The second person is Dr. Rashid Bajwa. Who's the CEO of NRSP. So he was my chairman for a very long period of time. And I learned a lot from him. I think like you have your father in your life, he was like me for my professional life. And the third is Nadeem Hussain Saab.
اپنا تعمیر بینک ایزی پیسہ والے
وہ، اور ان کی پرسنالٹی اور ڈاکٹر باجوہ کی پرسنالٹی میں کافی ڈفرینس بھی تھا. سو آئی لرن فرام بوتھ آف them, in fact from all three of them.
یہ لیجنڈز ہیں، انڈسٹری لیڈرز ہیں انڈسٹری. لاسٹ کوسچن,
and I would add to say you learn from so many other people.
Yes.
But these I would actually say
ڈاکٹر عبد ثاقب ہیں, بڑے بڑے کام,
غالب صاحب ہیں,
غالب صاحب ہیں. لاسٹ کوسچن آپ نے ہمیں اس کا دینا ہے جواب کہ آپ میسج فار ینگ پیپل کیا ہے اس وقت؟ ہوپ لیسنس اینڈ جاب لیسنس ایٹ پیک. اس وقت بہت ہی معاشی حالات کی وجہ سے بچے پڑھ رہے ہیں لیکن باہر جابس نہیں مل رہی. آپ کو بھی سارا دن آدھا سفارشیں کرنی پڑتی ہوں گی, سارے اس بچے کو انٹرنشپ دے دیں. واٹ از اے میسج فار ہوپ فار ینگ پیپل؟
اچھا جی, میرے خیال سے جی کبھی اپنی ہمت نہیں ہارنی انسان نے. سو
آپ نے گھبرانا نہیں ہے.
I would agree with that جی. آپ نے جو اگر آپ نے کوئی ایک تو لائف کا کوئی نہ کوئی ٹارگیٹ ہونا چاہیے, یہ بے مقصد نہیں ہونی چاہیے لائف کے بس مجھے تو پتہ ہی نہیں میں نے کیا کرنا ہے, کچھ تو کرنا ہے آپ نے. سو وہ جو کچھ کرنا ہے اس کو اچیو کرنے کے لیے یو نیڈ ٹو بی پرسسٹنٹ ان یور لائف. سو کنسسٹنسی, پرسسٹنس. آپ کو بمپس آئیں گے, پرابلمس آئیں گی, ان چیلنجز میں کوئی حرج نہیں ہے. ایون اف یو آر اے میل روئیں, کوئی حرج نہیں ہے, یہ کوئی مردانگی نہیں ہے کہ میں نہیں روتا. سو روئیں اس کے لیے, اللہ میاں سے مانگیں کہ مجھے چاہیے یہ, مجھے بتاؤ میں کیسے اچیو کر سکتا ہوں. بٹ اس ایم کو ایک تو ایم بڑا رکھیں, کوئی چھوٹے چھوٹے نہیں, بڑا مقصد ہونا چاہیے اور پھر اس کے پیچھے بھاگیں. نمبر 2, ریڈ دوز ہو آر سکسیزفل پیپل, یعنی وہ کیسے سکسیزفل ہوئے, ان سب نے مشکل وقت دیکھے ہیں. سو مشکل وقت تو لائف کا حصہ ہے. آئی نو ہمارے ملک کے کانٹیکسٹ میں اٹ از میکرو آلسو کانٹیکسٹ جو کہ شاید امریکہ میں نہیں ہے, دا لینڈ آف اپرچونٹی ہوں گے لیکن وہ نہیں ہے جو ہمارے ملک میں ہے. بٹ اسٹل جو بھی سچویشن ہو, ٹارگیٹ ہونا اور اس کے پیچھے ود کنسسٹنسی, ایک پرسسٹنس کے ساتھ پیچھے لگے رہنا از یور کی ٹو سکسیز. اور نوائز جو ہے نا وہ تو آتی رہے گی, اس کو آپ نے کس طرح سے ایبزارب کرنا ہے, کس طرح سے ڈائلیوٹ کر کے باہر پھینک دینا ہے, وہ آپ نے ڈیسائیڈ کرنا ہوگا.
تھینک یو ویری مچ, آپ کا بہت شکریہ محسن. ہم نے آج محسن صاحب سے بہت سیکھا. جسٹ ریپ اپ کر رہا ہوں آج کی گفتگو کو. سب سے پہلے جو میں نے آج کا ٹیک اوے ہے محسن سے, میں نے ایک انرجی سیکھی ہے. ہی از اے سو انرجیٹک پرسن, کیونکہ زندگی کے اندر میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ سی او کی سب سے بڑا جو اسکل ہے یا کمپیٹنس ہے اس کا انرجی لیول ہے, کیونکہ انرجی کے بغیر آپ کچھ نہیں. کیونکہ سی او کا نام میں نے چینج کر دیا ہے محسن, سی او کا نام میں نے رکھ دیا چیف ایگزیکٹو آفس کو ریپلیس کر کے چیف انرجائزنگ آفیسر. کیونکہ انرجی ہونی چاہیے نا, پیشن ہونا چاہیے. اس کے بعد سیکنڈ چیز جو ہوتی ہے نا وہ پرسسٹنس ہے, کہ زندگی میں آپ کے پاس ایک مقصد ہو اور اس کے بعد آپ اسٹک ہو جائیں اس کے ساتھ. یہ نئی نسل کے بچوں کے لیے بھی, کسی ہر بندے کے لیے, کیونکہ یہاں تعلیم بھی بے مقصد ہے, زندگی بھی بے مقصد ہے. کہتا ہے بڑا خوش قسمت ہوتا ہے, کہتا ہے جو چھوٹے ذہن ہوتے ہیں ان کے ذہنوں میں خواہشیں ہوتی ہیں, بڑے ذہنوں میں مقاصد ہوتے ہیں. چھوٹے ذہنوں میں خواہشیں ہوتی ہیں اور بڑے ذہنوں میں مقاصد ہوتے ہیں. تو جو بڑے ذہن کی بڑے لوگوں کے ساتھ جو آخری بات بڑی پیاری کی کہ آپ سکسیسفل لوگوں کو بیٹھیں, ان کو پڑھیں, ان کو سنیں, ان کی کتابیں پڑھیں, ان کے ساتھ ایسوسیٹ کریں, آپ بھی ویسے ہو جائیں گے. آپ کو مغناطیس ہوتا ہے نا, آپ اس کے رب کرتے ہیں. تو ہم چھوٹے ہوتے بچپن میں ایکسپیریمنٹ کرتے تھے تو مغناطیس کو ہم رب کرتے تھے, تو اس کے اندر لوہے کے اندر بھی وہ ایک پاور مغناطیس کی آ جاتی ہے. اچھے لوگوں کے ساتھ بیٹھیں, لا آف اٹریکشن ہے, تو آپ بھی ویسے ہو جاتے ہیں. تو پلیز اوائڈ دا ٹاکسک پیپل اینڈ ٹاکسک نیگیٹو سچویشنس اینڈ نیگیٹو میڈیا, نیگیٹو, یہ ساری آپ کی انرجی سک کر لیتے ہیں. تو اپنے آپ کو بچائیں اپنی انرجی کو ان نیگیٹیوٹی سے. تھینک یو ویری مچ. اس کو سیشن کو آپ نے سی او ٹوڈے بھی دیکھنا ہے, اور یہ ہمارا جو اپ کمنگ جو میگزین ہوگا اس میں بھی آپ دیکھیں گے. اور بھی کوشچن ہوں گے تو لائیو ہمیں بتائیے گا. تھینک یو. اللہ حافظ.
خدا حافظ. تھینک یو سر. تھینک یو.